The Forrester team had arrived in Italy with high expectations. A landmark photo shoot across Naples and Capri, sunlight, sea breeze, and glamour. The fashion house was pushing its image into a new era, and Ridge wanted every moment to reflect that. Eric, frail but insistent on being there, had accompanied the team despite his declining health. Brooke and Nick, now bound more by history than affection, had been included for legacy's sake. Tension simmered quietly beneath the polished surface, unspoken grievances wrapped in couture and silk. What no one expected was that by the end of the trip, nothing would be the same. It started as a routine day on the water. The production team had arranged a yacht for mid-ocean drone shots of Ridge, Brooke, and Nick against the glittering backdrop of the Amalfi Coast. They laughed for the cameras. The mood was light until the engine sputtered and the boat lurched violently. Crew members shouted, scrambling to understand what was happening. Alarms began to sound. A water intake valve had malfunctioned. The yacht began taking on water fast. Within seconds, chaos erupted. A sudden current rocked the vessel sideways, sending props crashing, equipment sliding, people stumbling. And then, the unthinkable Brooke and Nick, both without life vests, were thrown overboard. Ridge's instincts kicked in instantly. He shouted for someone to toss flotation devices, but the deck was already a frenzy. He ran toward the side, heart pounding, scanning the waves. He saw Brooke first, her hand reaching out, mouth barely above the surface. Then Nick, further out, struggling, yelling. He had drifted faster, pulled by the current. The crew yelled for Ridge to wait, but he didn't. He dove into the water. Time blurred beneath the waves. Ridge swam hard, faster toward the figure closer to him, Brooke. He reached her, pulled her up, wrapped his arm around her, and swam back. As they neared the boat, another crew member finally dove in after Nick, but the delay had already cost them. Nick had swallowed too much water. He was coughing, gasping, barely conscious when they dragged him onto the deck. Brooke lay in Ridge's arms, eyes closed, shivering. Ridge held her tighter. He didn't even look at Nick. And in that moment, a choice had been made. One that would shatter the fragile balance they'd all tried to preserve. Eric, watching from the support boat nearby, looked stricken. Not just with fear, but with knowledge. He knew something more than the others. His eyes followed the horizon, and the lines of his face seemed to cave deeper. He had seen something during the incident. Something he wouldn't speak of. Not yet. Back on shore, emergency services were waiting. Brooke remained unconscious. Nick was taken in for observation. Ridge rode in the ambulance beside Brooke, refusing to leave her side. Taylor called from LA, her voice tight with worry. Ridge said only it was an accident. But he avoided the question that mattered. Why did he save Brooke first? Brooke woke up the next day in a hospital bed in Naples. She blinked against the light, confused. Her memory of the incident was hazy fragments of water, screams, motion, and Ridge. She asked for Ridge first. She barely mentioned Nick. That's when he walked in. Nick, bruised but recovering, stood beside her bed and spoke softly. "You and I were talking just before it happened," he said. "You told me you wanted to get away. That you were tired of pretending with Ridge." Brooke looked at him blankly. "I did." He smiled gently. "You did." She didn't question it. It was the opening Nick needed. He continued to visit her, feeding her memories she didn't fully own. Moments they'd supposedly shared. Conversations they might have had. Confessions of regret. Of love. Of what could have been. He wasn't overt. He knew Brooke needed to feel it was her idea. And it worked. Within days, she began to pull away from Ridge. Not with anger, but with distance. Confusion. Doubt. Ridge tried to talk to her, but her gaze flickered. "You didn't even look for him," she said quietly. "You saw me first. But you didn't try to save both of us." Ridge's voice cracked. "I had seconds, Logan. You were closest. You were drowning. But she was already looking away." Back in LA, news of the incident had leaked. A whisper campaign among fashion insiders turned into a full-on media assault. Was the Forrester yacht sabotage? Were Brooke and Nick fighting before the crash? Did Ridge choose Brooke over Nick on purpose? Paparazzi staked out the Forrester mansion. Tabloids printed theories by the hour. Stock prices wavered. Taylor watched it all unfold and unraveled. She had trusted Ridge again. Believed, after everything, that he had grown. But this choice, this emotional, knee-jerk, instinctive act confirmed her deepest fear, that Ridge would always choose Brooke. No matter what. No matter who got hurt. She didn't explode. She broke quietly. When Steffi walked into the room and saw her mother crying on the floor, she made a decision. "We're leaving LA," Steffi said. "For now. You need distance. I need clarity. Let them tear each other apart without us." They were gone within 48 hours. Ridge returned home to a fractured world. Eric had withdrawn, refusing to speak to anyone about the accident. His health declined. He barely left his study. Ridge confronted him, but Eric only said, "I saw something on that boat, Ridge. But it's not my story to tell." That cryptic line haunted Ridge. What had his father seen? What wasn't he saying? Meanwhile, Nick recovered quickly and made his next move. He held a press conference, claimed the accident highlighted serious safety oversights by Forrester's production team. He stopped short of accusing Ridge directly, but the implication hung in the air like fog. He painted himself as the survivor, the voice of reason, the man who almost died because of company negligence and personal bias. The press ate it up. Brooke didn't attend the press event, but her silence said enough. She no longer defended Ridge. She had begun spending more time with Nick. Not romantically, not yet, but often enough that the press started crafting a narrative. Rekindled flames. Survivors bond. A love revisited. The real truth, Ridge realized, was slipping away. He confronted Brooke one evening, told her Nick was manipulating her, that she didn't remember the truth, that her memories were false, planted, bent. Brooke looked at him, tears in her eyes. "Why does that even matter?" she said. "You made your choice." And she walked away. The dominoes had fallen. Taylor was gone. Steffi had walked with her. Thomas stayed, but kept his distance. The press began calling for Ridge's resignation as CEO, citing emotional instability and poor leadership during the crisis. Forrester's board convened behind closed doors. Whispers of shareholder unrest grew louder. And then, the final blow. A leaked photo. Ridge on the deck of the yacht moments before the accident, looking at Brooke, eyes locked, the world fading behind them. Nick in the background, unseen, unheard. The headline, "He chose her." And everyone paid the price. The truth no longer mattered. Perception was reality now. And Ridge Forrester had become the villain in his own story. But something deeper brewed beneath the surface. Eric, alone in his study, eyes bloodshot, hands trembling, pulled out a recording. A shaky video taken from his phone during the yacht accident. The footage showed movement, shouting, panic, and then, in a brief flash, something chilling, Nick adjusting the boat's controls moments before the malfunction. Eric stared at the screen, jaw clenched. He had known, all along. But his heart was failing, and the truth was slipping through his fingers. If he didn't speak soon, the last secret would die with him. And no one, least of all Ridge, would see what was really coming. The storm didn't pass with the waves. After the Forrester yacht accident in Italy, the true battle began not in the waters of Naples or the cliffs of Capri, but in the media, the boardrooms, and the fractured hearts of those left behind. Los Angeles was no longer just a city of stars and fashion. It had become a theater for the fallout of what the press had dubbed the Italian Triangle: Ridge, Brooke, and Nick. A trip that should have celebrated creativity and legacy had left behind only questions, doubt, and a glaring spotlight. The media frenzy was relentless. Tabloids flooded with headlines: Ridge's reckoning, Brooke's betrayal, Nick's near death, Forrester in freefall. Journalists camped outside the gates of the Forrester estate. Rumors morphed into theories. Every grainy photo, every leaked memo, every public silence became ammunition. They wanted blame. They wanted scandal. They wanted a name. Brooke Logan stepped forward. In a surprise move, without consulting Ridge, without alerting her PR team, Brooke held a press conference. Standing alone in front of the Forrester building with only a few typed notes in hand, she addressed the cameras with no makeup, no script, and no filter. She didn't cry. She didn't spin. She owned it. "I need to say something publicly," she began. "Because part of this is my fault. Not the mechanical failure. Not the accident itself. But the energy that led to it. The pressure, the instability, the triangle of emotion I allowed to form between me, Ridge, and Nick. I take responsibility for pulling Nick into our orbit again. I let old wounds and unresolved feelings linger too close to the surface. And that chaos created tension. And tension creates mistakes. This was a tragedy. But no one acted out of hate. We acted out of confusion, out of heartbreak, out of fear. I take moral responsibility for my role in that." The statement sent shockwaves across the industry. It was the opposite of what everyone expected. Brooke didn't play the victim. She didn't blame Ridge. She didn't protect herself. She stood alone and shouldered the fallout. For Ridge, watching from his office, it was like being hit in the chest. He knew how much this had cost her. He knew what she'd endured. And yet, here she was, standing before the world, bearing her soul, not for sympathy, but for accountability. And yet, part of him hesitated. He respected it. He admired the courage. But admiration and trust weren't the same thing. A voice in the back of his mind whispered, was she protecting Nick again? Was there more to this than what she said? Was she shielding him from something Ridge didn't know yet? The official investigation into the yacht incident concluded 2 weeks later. The report was clear: no sabotage, no criminal intent. But the cause was just as damning. Human error compounded by a series of rushed decisions. The accident wasn't a murder plot, but a consequence of ego, improvisation, and failure to follow protocol. A storm of impulse and unchecked emotion. The board at Forrester Creations held an emergency summit. Questions were raised not just about the accident, but about the judgment of the people involved. Investors wanted assurance. Was Ridge still fit to lead the company? Was Brooke's presence stabilizing or volatile? Could the Forrester brand survive another public implosion? Meanwhile, the fracture inside Ridge deepened. He had two paths, and both led to pain. Taylor had left Los Angeles. After the accident, after Ridge's unspoken choice to save Brooke first, she and Steffi had packed their bags and flown to Zurich. Silence was her answer. She didn't scream. She didn't plead. She just disappeared. Safe. Predictable. Unavailable. Brooke remained. Not just in LA, but in every room Ridge walked into. She was at the office, in the studios, in the headlines, and in his thoughts. She didn't chase him. She didn't try to pull him back. She simply was, taking each meeting with grace, facing each attack with strength. And yet, Ridge saw the cracks in her when no one else did. The moments she stared out windows too long. The tremble in her hand before a board presentation. The way she avoided looking at his sketchbook. She was hurting. But she never let it define her. And that was the problem. He didn't know if he loved her, or if he was just addicted to her fire. Taylor had offered him peace. A measured life. A version of Ridge that was balanced, whole, centered. With Taylor, he could rest. He could be the man he always claimed to be. But with Brooke, he felt every second, every mistake, every inch of his soul stretched and torn. Now he had to decide, not for romance, but for legacy. For family. For the company. For himself. The final blow came when hope, out of desperation, approached Ridge alone. She begged him to forgive her mother. She made mistakes. So did you. So did I. But she told the truth when no one else did. Doesn't that count for something? Ridge looked at her, then down at the signed investigation report. Then at a photo on his desk, Eric, Brooke, and himself, smiling, unaware of what was coming. Later that evening, he stood before the entire Forrester executive team, flanked by Thomas, Carter, and Donna. Reporters were outside, already speculating. This was it, the moment Ridge Forrester would answer the question hanging over all of LA. He cleared his throat. I've spent the past month living with a choice I made in seconds. I'll live with it for the rest of my life. I've asked myself every day, did I act out of love or out of instinct? Did I do the right thing? I may never know. But what I do know is that the people we build our lives around, the ones who push us, test us, break us, they're the ones who define us. Brooke Logan is not perfect. She never has been. But she never ran. She took responsibility. She stood up for this company when it could have buried her. She stood up for me when I didn't deserve it. And that means something. So yes, I'm staying. And I'm asking her to stay too. The silence was absolute. Then Thomas stood. Then Carter. Then Donna, tears in her eyes. Later, Ridge walked to Brooke's office. She was packing up sketches, readying herself for whatever decision he had made. He closed the door. I told them you're staying, he said. She paused. And you? He stepped closer. I'm tired of running. From you. From myself. I don't know where this ends. But I'm not afraid to find out anymore. Forrester Creations did not collapse. It evolved. The board restructured. Brooke was appointed co-creative director alongside Thomas. Ridge returned as CEO but with new checks on his decisions. Carter handled public relations. Hope returned to the Hope for the Future line, focusing fully on rebuilding its voice. Taylor, hearing the news from afar, said nothing. She turned off her phone and walked into the Swiss snow. And Nick? He gave no more interviews. He stayed quiet. But those who knew him best suspected he was far from done. The power map of Los Angeles had changed. Not just in the boardroom, but in hearts and homes. Because love at Forrester was never about happy endings. It was about who could survive the fire and still choose to walk through it.